What's something you do now that the 10-year-old you would think impossible? No way. You couldn't possibly predict where your life would be now when you were 10 years old. Isn't it great that you're not limited by your 10-year-old mindset? So why stay limited at today's year-old mindset? Let's question that today on the next Simple Step podcast. I'm Paul Goldsmith. It's cliche, but it's true. It's only impossible until it's done. And for years, people thought it physically impossible for a person to run a mile in under 4 minutes. So many people tried and failed. They just didn't think it was humanly possible to do that. It just couldn't be done. Until Roger Bannister did in 1954. And then since then, thousands of people have done that impossible task. I'm not included in those, but the point still serves that long-held assumptions are busted all the time. Long-held assumptions should be questioned. Maybe there's another way to accomplish that thing that has you stuck, that thing that you think's impossible. And maybe right now it is with your current circumstances or your current limited knowledge. So I think the key here is to get curious. For me, every time I get stuck or frustrated, creatively just in a rut, I start asking questions. Who has this figured out? How can I learn from them? Who's a few steps ahead of me? What can I learn from them? If you don't take anything else from this podcast, I just want to encourage you to question conventional wisdom. I first heard that phrase, conventional wisdom, and what it meant as a kid listening to Jay Marvin late nights on WLS radio in Chicago. And that's what made him a great talk show host. He questioned everyone and everything. It was interesting. Another Chicagoan famous for questioning conventional wisdom was billionaire investor and businessman Sam Zell. When I heard he passed away recently and the tribute started rolling in, I was reminded about his book and downloaded his autobiography called Am I Being Too Subtle? Because with a title like that, I knew I'd love it. And in the book, Sam writes, "If everyone is going to look left, look right. Conventional wisdom is nothing to me but a reference point. In fact, I believe it can be a horribly debilitating concept. It often boils down to a bunch of people yelling, 'Go this way!' And once the crowd gets going, it can get real loud, real fast." Now, Zell knows what he's talking about because he actually made his fortune betting against the crowds, the real estate investors and the real estate developers that overspent, that thought the market could never go down. And when it did and they went broke, he gobbled up the real estate at pennies on the dollar. When everybody else was going left, he went right. Real estate's like everything else. Some things go really well for a while until they don't. And so maybe in your job or your industry, something that worked, 10, 20, 30 years ago is coming to a screeching halt. It's not working as well anymore. I would encourage you to find out what changed and look at other industries and how they adapted. The analogy is always drawn to Blockbuster had the chance to buy Netflix, but they thought they were in the video rental space and not in the home entertainment, internet streaming platform. They didn't see the future there. Or Kodak was a huge company for like a century until they weren't, and Instagram came along. And because Kodak thought they were in the film business instead of the capturing memories and sharing those memories with others business, the technology changed, but the industry didn't. Question everything. I saw firsthand radio stations and companies be the last ones to enter the podcast space. They saw it as competition, or they didn't take it very seriously until they had to. And they were really late to the game, but they should have been the first. The fact that now today in 2023, more people are listening to audio than ever before should be a wonderful thing for broadcasters. But there's still some that don't understand the power of using the technology to reach people where they're at on demand by recording podcasts instead of just sticking to the terrestrial signal, sticking to the format of 100 years ago. And so whatever your industry is, Is there a better way to apply technology or the latest knowledge to reach people where they're at? But it takes critical thinking because not everyone can tell you what it is they want. As Henry Ford pointed out when he was developing the Model T, that if he had asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. So let me ask you, what things in your life aren't working anymore? 50, 60 years ago in America, if you didn't want a manual labor job, if you didn't want to work in a factory, it was a pretty good idea to go to college so you could get an office job. You could better your life doing that. But the world has changed in the last half a century. Unfortunately, still many people have the conventional wisdom that everybody still needs to go to college, and that's simply not true. So many students go into debt and they come out and go back to live with their parents. They don't have a clue what career they want to pursue. And others could have got a kickstart on the industry of their choice, their passion, if they would have started instead of continuing their education at that point. I'm a big fan of continuing education. I feel like we all should be learning constantly. I don't ever want to stop learning, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in a high-ticket classroom. So if there's something in your life, a long-held dream that you've written off, that you thought you're too old or your time is past, maybe it's time to reconsider and reimagine what's possible. And if you'd like help, maybe figuring that out for you, feel free to send me a text. The number is 559-574-3210. And I thank you for listening. Until next time, question everything, especially the things that are conventional wisdom. And I'll talk to you next time on the next Simple Step Podcast.